Nina Sampson's hand wrapped around the forearm of Seoul's most feared crime lord before she could stop herself, and the entire hallway froze. Security guards reaching for guns, assistants fleeing in terror because Kang Min-jae hadn't let anyone touch him in 7 years without triggering a violent breakdown that once left a man's wrist shattered for attempting a handshake. But as her dark skin pressed against his pale sleeve, skin to skin, something impossible happened. Min-jae didn't scream, didn't collapse into the flashbacks that haunted him since his brother died bleeding in his arms. Instead, he looked at her with an expression that made her blood run cold, like she was either his salvation or his next obsession. Nina was an undercover Interpol agent, sent to destroy him from the inside out, armed with a fake identity and 90 days to find evidence that would dismantle his empire and send him to prison for life. But nobody plans for the moment when the monster you're hunting looks at you like you're the only thing keeping him human, when his broken pieces start to fit against yours, when betrayal and desire become so twisted you can't tell where the mission ends and the falling begins. And now, 3 people who want him dead just realized that destroying her is the fastest way to break him completely. Welcome back, besties. Kindly show your support by dropping a like, subscribing and telling us where you are watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The coffee went flying before Nina Sampson could stop it. One moment she was rounding the corner of the glass-walled corridor, reviewing her cover story in her head, trying to remember every detail of her fabricated resume. The next moment, she slammed directly into what felt like a wall of granite dressed in Italian silk. Her briefcase hit the marble floor with a crack that echoed through the silent hallway. Papers scattered like startled birds, financial reports, her fake credentials, everything spilling across the polished surface, and her hand, her traitorous, panicked hand, shot out to steady herself, fingers wrapping around the forearm of the man she'd just collided with, skin to skin, full palm contact, the warmth of human flesh beneath expensive fabric. Time didn't just slow, it stopped. The man froze. Every muscle in his body went rigid, like a statue carved from ice and fury. Around them, security guards reached for weapons hidden under their jackets, with movements so practiced they were almost synchronized. 3 assistants backed away so fast one of them stumbled into a potted plant. The temperature in the hallway seemed to plummet 10 degrees in a single breath. Nina looked up, and her breath caught in her throat. Sharp jawline that could cut glass, eyes like black diamonds, cold and assessing, lips pressed into a thin line that spoke of control held by the thinnest thread, a face that could have been sculpted by an artist who understood both beauty and cruelty in equal measure. This was Kang Min-jae, the man whose photograph she'd memorized during 3 weeks of intensive briefings in a secure Interpol facility. Seoul's most feared crime lord, the untouchable king of Korea's underworld, the ghost who moved billions through shadow networks. And she was touching him. Her hand was still wrapped around his forearm, her dark skin stark against his pale sleeve. She could feel his pulse thundering beneath her palm, could feel the tension vibrating through him like a live wire. "Oh God," she whispered in Igbo, then switched to Korean, her accent thickening with nerves. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't see you. I wasn't looking. But Min-jae wasn't listening. He was staring at his forearm where her hand still rested, his expression cycling through emotions too fast to track. Shock, confusion, something that looked almost like wonder. His breathing had gone shallow, his chest rising and falling with visible effort, because for the first time in 7 years, a touch didn't trigger the flashback, didn't bring back the weight of his brother's dying body in his arms, the warmth of blood seeping through his fingers, the sound of laboured breathing fading to nothing, didn't fill his mouth with the phantom taste of copper and death. There was just warmth, simple, human warmth, and silence where there should have been screaming memories. What the hell? Who is she? His voice was deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that made grown men confess to crimes they hadn't committed. His second in command, Park Hyun-soo, stepped forward quickly, practically vibrating with tension. The man's hand was inside his jacket, fingers wrapped around a gun he clearly wanted to draw. "Sir, this is Miss Sampson from the international consulting firm. She's the financial auditor the board requested for the European expansion deal. She arrived this morning from Lagos." Min Jae's cold gaze finally lifted from his arm to Nina's face. He took in everything in a single sweep. Her dark skin, her carefully styled box braids pulled back in a professional bun, the coffee stains spreading across her white silk blouse like blood. The fear she was trying very hard to hide behind a mask of composure, the intelligence in her eyes that suggested she understood exactly how much danger she was in. For 5 endless seconds, he just stared at her, taking inventory, assessing threat levels, calculating. Nina forced herself to meet his gaze, even though every instinct screamed at her to look down, to show submission, to make herself smaller. But she'd grown up in Lagos, in a neighbourhood where showing weakness got you eaten alive. She'd learned young that sometimes the only way to survive a predator was to convince it you weren't prey. So she held his stare and waited for him to decide if she lived or died. "Get her cleaned up," he said finally, still not looking away from her. "She starts immediately. I want her in my office in 20 minutes. Then he walked past her, his shoulder nearly brushing hers, his footsteps echoing down the corridor like a countdown. His security detail followed like shadows, their hands still resting on concealed weapons, their eyes locked on Nina like she was a bomb that might detonate at any moment. The second they rounded the corner, Nina's knees went weak. She grabbed the wall for support, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Around her, the staff slowly began to move again, like someone had unpaused reality after a glitch. "Miss Sampson!" Hyun-soo was looking at her with something between curiosity and concern, though his hand was still inside his jacket. "I'm Park Hyun-soo, Mr. Kang's executive assistant. Let me show you to the executive washroom. You'll want to change before the meeting." As she followed him down another corridor, her reflection appearing and disappearing in the glass walls, Nina's mind raced. She'd just blown her cover in the first 30 seconds. 3 months of preparation, weeks of learning Korean business etiquette, memorizing financial terminology, building a fake identity that could withstand scrutiny, all potentially destroyed because she'd been clumsy. And she'd touched him. The one man in Seoul who everyone knew had a pathological aversion to physical contact, the man who supposedly once broke a junior executive's wrist for attempting a handshake, the man whose personal space was guarded more carefully than nuclear launch codes. "Does he always react that way?" she asked carefully as they walked. To being touched, Hyun-soo's expression closed off. "Mr. Kang doesn't like to be touched by anyone, ever. You're lucky he didn't have you removed from the building in pieces." But there was something in his tone, a question mark, because they'd both seen it. That moment where Min Jae had looked confused instead of angry. That split second where the expected explosion hadn't come. "I won't let it happen again," Nina said. "See that you don't. For your sake." The executive washroom was all marble and gold fixtures, designed to intimidate as much as serve function. Nina washed the coffee from her hands, watching the dark liquid swirl down the drain, and tried to control her breathing. She stared at her reflection. At 29, she was one of Interpol's youngest senior investigators, recruited straight out of her forensic accounting program at the London School of Economics. She'd taken down embezzlers in Dubai, money launderers in Singapore, corrupt officials in Brussels. She didn't scare easily, but Kang Min-jae was different. Because the thing about Min-jae wasn't just that he was dangerous, it was that he was smart, methodical. His organisation had existed for 15 years without a single successful prosecution. Every investigator who got close either disappeared or suddenly decided to retire to very remote locations. The man was a ghost, wrapped in expensive suits, moving billions through networks so complex they might as well have been quantum encrypted. And now Nina had to get close to him, close enough to access his financial records, close enough to find the evidence Interpol needed, close enough to bring him down, close enough to betray him. Her stomach churned. A knock on the door. A woman entered, probably mid-20s, beautiful in the way Korean beauty standards demanded, pale skin, delicate features, designer clothes. She looked Nina up and down with barely concealed hostility before shoving a black silk blouse at her. "Mr. Kang sent this, your size." The words were polite, but the tone was poison. "Thank you," Nina said in Korean, taking the blouse. The woman didn't leave, just stood there, arms crossed, watching as Nina changed in one of the stalls. When Nina emerged, the woman was still there, her expression calculating. "You touched him," she said. "It was an accident. No one touches Mr. Kang, not his mother, not his closest advisors. No one." The woman stepped closer. "So either you're incredibly stupid or you're playing a very dangerous game." Nina met her eyes. "I'm just here to do a job. We'll see." The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Young Mi-sun, executive assistant to the CFO. We'll be working closely together during your audit. I'll be watching you, Miss Sampson, very closely." Then she left, her heels clicking against marble like a warning. Nina took a breath, then another. This assignment was already spinning out of control, and she'd been in the building less than an hour. She checked her reflection one final time. The black blouse fit perfectly, which meant Min-jae had assessed her size in those few seconds in the hallway, had catalogued every detail about her while deciding whether she was a threat. That level of observation was either impressive or terrifying, possibly both. When she emerged from the washroom, Hyun-soo was waiting. "Mr. Kang is ready for you. If you're already hooked, hit that like button, because this story is about to take you on a ride you won't believe." Min-jae's office was exactly what she'd expected, and somehow worse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, the city spread out below like a kingdom, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Each piece positioned with mathematical precision, everything sharp angles and cold surfaces, glass and steel and leather. No photographs, no personal items, no art on the walls, nothing that suggested a human being actually worked here. It looked like the office of someone who deliberately excised every trace of humanity from his environment. A bunker disguised as executive space. Min-jae stood by the window, his back to her, hands in his pockets. She could see his reflection in the glass, that same calculating expression he'd worn in the hallway. But now there was something else. Uncertainty, maybe, or curiosity. "I didn't ask for you," he said without turning around. His voice was measured, controlled, revealing nothing. Nina stepped further into the office, her heels silent on the thick carpet. "I'm aware, Mr. Kang, but your board of directors did, or rather, the international consortium you're negotiating with did. They require independent financial verification before releasing funds for European expansion. I don't have a board. No, you have 7 silent partners who collectively own 49% of your legitimate holdings. Close enough. She'd done her homework. And those partners want to expand into European markets, but international banks require external financial audits. That's what I'm here for, to make sure your books are clean enough to pass regulatory inspection. He turned slowly, and she got her first clear look at him in proper lighting. He was younger than his reputation suggested, maybe 34, 35. Beautiful in a way that was almost unsettling, like a Renaissance painting of a fallen angel. But there was something in his eyes, some depth of exhaustion or pain, that aged him. "And if I refuse your audit," he asked, "then you lose a 3.2 billion won deal. Your choice, Mr. Kang." Long silence stretched between them, like a tightrope. Nina forced herself to hold his gaze, even though the intensity of it made her skin prickle. This was a test. Everything with Min-jae was a test. "You touched me." His voice was soft, dangerous, like a blade wrapped in silk. "It was an accident. I apologize. No one touches me. Ever." He moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory. "Do you know why?" "I've heard rumors." "Rumors." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "What do the rumors say?" Nina hesitated. This felt like walking through a minefield. "They say you have haplophobia, that physical contact triggers adverse reactions." Adverse reactions. He repeated the clinical term like it was a joke. That's one way to describe it. Another step closer. He was 3 feet away now. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and cold, cedar and frost. Close enough to see the fine lines around his eyes that suggested sleepless nights. Close enough to see the way his jaw clenched, like he was holding back words that wanted to escape. "The truth is more complicated," he said quietly. 7 years ago, my younger brother was shot in a territorial dispute. I held him while he died. Tried to stop the bleeding. His blood was everywhere, on my hands, my clothes, my face. I could feel his heartbeat getting slower, could feel the moment it stopped. His eyes were unfocused now, seeing something she couldn't. After that, every touch felt wrong, like I was contaminating people, or they were trying to take something from me, like I was covered in death and couldn't wash it off. Nina's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry." Everyone says that. But sorry doesn't change what happened. Sorry doesn't bring him back. Sorry doesn't make the flashbacks stop. He focused on her again, sharp and assessing. For 7 years, any unexpected touch triggers a panic attack. Sends me right back to that night. I see his face, feel his blood, hear his last breath. "I didn't know if I had—" "But you didn't." He cut her off, voice going cold again. "You touched me, grabbed my arm, full contact. And I should have had a flashback, should have seen my brother dying, should have felt like I was drowning in blood." He was standing directly in front of her now, so close she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "But I didn't," he said softly. For the first time in 7 years, a touch felt normal, just warm skin, just human contact, no memories, no panic, nothing but. He stopped, shook his head like he was clearing it. "I don't know what that means, but I intend to find out." Nina's pulse hammered. This was dangerous, more dangerous than any weapon. Because she could see it in his eyes, fascination, interest, the kind of intense focus a predator shows just before the hunt. "You have 90 days to audit my finances," he said, stepping back abruptly, creating distance. "You'll have access to everything. With supervision, you'll report directly to me, no one else. You'll work from an office adjacent to mine, and you'll be available when I need you. Clear? Crystal? Good." He returned to his desk, sat down, opened a laptop, dismissed her without another word. But as Nina turned to leave, he spoke again. "Miss Sampson?" She looked back. His eyes were unreadable. If you ever touch me again without permission, there will be consequences. I may not have had a flashback this time, but that doesn't mean I welcome contact. Understood? Understood. Also, the slightest pause. Welcome to Seoul. It almost sounded genuine. The office they gave her was adjacent to Min Jae's, separated by a wall of frosted glass that let light through but obscured details. She could see his silhouette when he moved, a dark shape shifting behind translucent barriers. He could undoubtedly see hers. It felt like being in a cage with a tiger, one that was watching her constantly, trying to decide if she was food or something else. The workspace itself was immaculate. Top-of-the-line computer equipment, dual monitors, a desk that probably cost more than her car back in Lagos, a leather chair that adjusted 17 different ways, everything she could possibly need for a thorough financial audit, including, she noticed, a clear view of Min Jae's office through that frosted glass. She could track his movements throughout the day, could see when he was working, when he was on calls, when he stood by the window, staring out at the city. Was that intentional? Did he want her to see him? Or was it a power move, a reminder that he was always aware of her presence? Nina set up her laptop and started reviewing the preliminary files. Hyun-soo had provided. On the surface, everything looked legitimate. Import-export businesses with clean paper trails, real estate holdings purchased through proper channels, a chain of upscale restaurants with books that balanced to the penny, investment portfolios that showed steady, unremarkable growth. But she'd done this long enough to know that legitimate and legal weren't always the same thing. The best money laundering operations hid in plain sight, using real businesses with real transactions as cover for dirty money. The devil was in the details, timing irregularities, transaction patterns that were too perfect, shell companies buried 3 layers deep. She was good at finding devils. The problem was, she couldn't focus. Every few minutes, her eyes drifted to that glass wall, to his shadow moving behind it. She kept replaying the conversation in his office, the way he'd described his brother's death with that flat, emotionless voice that barely concealed an ocean of pain, the way he'd looked at her when he said her touch had felt normal, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve, like she was dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with physical threat. Her phone buzzed, a text from her handler at Interpol, encrypted through 3 layers of security. Status report. Nina typed quickly. In position. Cover intact. Beginning preliminary review. Target is complicated. The response came immediately. Complicated how? She stared at the question. How did she explain that the man she was supposed to be investigating had just shared one of his deepest traumas with her? That he'd looked at her like she was simultaneously a threat and a lifeline? That some part of her, some stupid, unprofessional part, had wanted to offer comfort? Just complicated. Will report when I have something concrete. She put the phone away and forced herself to focus on the files. Numbers were safe. Numbers didn't have wounded eyes and tragic backstories. Numbers couldn't make her question her mission. At 7 p.m, the office began to empty. Staff members packed up their things and left with relieved expressions, like prisoners being released for the night. But Min Jae's silhouette remained behind the glass wall, motionless at his desk. Nina kept working too. Partly because she had a job to do, partly because she wasn't sure if leaving without permission would be seen as insubordination, partly because she was afraid of what might happen in that elevator ride down, in the parking garage, in her hotel room, afraid of the moment she'd have to stop being professional investigator Nina and become regular Nina, who'd just told a massive lie to someone who'd shared his grief with her. At 8:30, her stomach growled loud enough to be embarrassing. At 9, her vision started to blur from staring at spreadsheets. At 9:15, The frosted glass door to her office slid open with a soft hiss. Min-jae stood in the doorway, jacket discarded, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He looked exhausted and somehow more human without all the armor of executive formality. "You're still here?" It wasn't a question. Nina looked up, blinking tired eyes. "So are you. It's my company. And these are my audits. Same difference, Mr. Kang." Something flickered across his face. Amusement, irritation. It was gone before she could identify it. "When did you last eat?" The question surprised her. It was such a normal human thing to ask. Breakfast, on the plane from Lagos, some kind of airline omelette that tasted like regret. That was 16 hours ago. I've gone longer. His eyes narrowed. That's not an answer to the question I'm actually asking. Which is, why are you still here? Why aren't you at your hotel, ordering room service, recovering from jet lag like a sensible person? Nina leaned back in her chair, studying him. Would you have preferred I leave? I would have preferred you take care of yourself. You're no use to me if you collapse from exhaustion. How pragmatic. I'm a pragmatic man, Miss Sampson. He pulled out his phone, spoke in rapid Korean, too quick for her to follow, then hung up. Food will be here in 20 minutes. You'll eat before you leave. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order from someone used to absolute obedience. Nina wanted to argue. She didn't like being ordered around, especially by men who thought their power made them gods, but her stomach betrayed her with another loud growl. "Thank you," she said instead, keeping her tone neutral. He nodded curtly and turned to leave. "Mr. Kang?" He stopped, not looking back. "Why did you tell me about your brother?" Long silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "I don't know. I never talk about him, never tell anyone what happened. But you..." He turned slightly, giving her his profile. "You looked at me like I was human. Not a monster. Not a king. Just human. That's rare." Then he walked back to his office, the glass door sliding shut behind him. 15 minutes later, enough food to feed a small army arrived. A woman in a catering uniform wheeled in a cart loaded with containers. Japchae, bulgogi, kimchi, steamed vegetables, rice, 3 different kinds of soup. The spread covered the entire conference table in Nina's office. The woman bowed repeatedly and left without a word. Nina stared at the food, overwhelmed. This was easily 200,000 won worth of dishes from what looked like a high-end restaurant. More than she'd normally spend on groceries in a month. The frosted glass door opened again. "You're not eating," Min-jae observed. "It's too much for one person." "Then share it." Before she could protest, he walked to the conference table, pulled out a chair, and sat down, expectant, waiting. Nina blinked. "You want to eat with me? The food will get cold. Sit, Miss Sampson." She sat. Because what else could she do? For several minutes, they ate in silence. Nina tried not to make any noise, hyper-aware of his presence across the table. He ate efficiently, mechanically, like it was just fuel for his body rather than something to enjoy, like he'd forgotten food could be pleasurable. "Why did you come to Seoul?" he asked suddenly. Nina's hand paused halfway to her mouth, chopsticks gripping a piece of bulgogi. "For the job." "No." He set down his chopsticks, leaned back. "Why Seoul, specifically? There are financial firms in London, New York, Dubai, Lagos even, places where you wouldn't have to deal with language barriers or cultural differences, places that would be easier for a Nigerian woman to navigate." She set down her chopsticks too, meeting his eyes. This was another test. Everything with him was a test. Because I wanted a challenge, and auditing a Korean chaebol's expansion into European markets is about as challenging as it gets. You like challenges. I like problems I can solve. His expression shifted, something sharp and calculating sliding into place. And you think my finances are a problem you can solve. I think your finances are hiding something. And yes, I think I can uncover what that is. That's my job, Mr. Kang. I find the irregularities. I trace the patterns. I follow the money until it has nowhere left to hide. Honesty. It was a gamble. But Nina's instincts told her that Min Jai respected directness more than flattery. He dealt with sycophants and liars all day. Someone who spoke plainly might actually stand out. Confident, he murmured. Most people are terrified of me. They either grovel or they run. You're doing neither. Should I be? Terrified. He considered the question seriously. Most people would say yes. I've built my reputation on being ruthless, on making examples of people who cross me, on creating fear as a tool of control. That's not an answer. No, a ghost of a smile. It's not. The truth is more complicated. I'm ruthless when I need to be, but I'm not cruel for cruelty's sake. I don't enjoy hurting people. I just don't let anything stand between me and my goals. And right now, your goal is European expansion. Right now, my goal is understanding you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Nina's pulse quickened. I'm not that interesting. You're the most interesting person I've met in years. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. You touched me, and I didn't fall apart. You look at me like I'm human. You speak your mind instead of telling me what you think I want to hear, and you're sitting here eating dinner with me like it's the most normal thing in the world, when most people would rather chew glass than be alone in a room with me. Maybe I'm just very good at hiding fear. No, I know what fear looks like. I've seen it in enough faces. You're not afraid. His eyes searched hers. You're curious about me, about what happened today. You want to understand why your touch didn't trigger a flashback. He was right. Damn him. Curiosity isn't a crime, Nina said. No, but it's dangerous, especially around me. I'll take my chances. Comment below what you think is going to happen next, because this tension is about to explode in ways you won't see coming. They fell into a strange rhythm over the next 2 weeks. Nina arrived at 8 a.m. every morning. Min Jae was always already there, the lights in his office already on, his silhouette already moving behind the frosted glass. She'd settle into her desk, pull up financial records, and start the meticulous work of tracing transactions. And all day, every day, she'd feel him watching, not constantly, but regularly. She'd look up from her screen and catch his shadow paused behind the glass, oriented toward her office. She'd go to the kitchen for coffee and find him there, leaning against the counter, claiming he'd had the same idea. She'd be reviewing files with Hyun Soo, and Min Jae would suddenly appear, asking detailed questions about her methodology. It should have felt oppressive, should have felt like surveillance. Instead, it felt like being seen, really seen. For the first time in years, he never touched her again, never came within arm's reach, but he was always there, orbiting her like a moon caught in gravitational pull, unable to escape, but unable to come closer either. And the food kept appearing. At noon every day without fail, someone would deliver lunch to her office. Nothing extravagant, just simple, high-quality meals from different restaurants around Seoul. Bibimbap, mandu, samgyeopsal, each one carefully selected, like someone was trying to figure out her preferences through trial and error. She never asked if it was from Min Jae. He never acknowledged sending it, but they both knew. It felt like being courted by someone who'd forgotten how courting worked, like he was trying to care for her using the only language he understood, providing necessities, ensuring her survival, protecting her from his own world. On day 9, she found something. It was subtle, almost invisible, a series of transactions routed through shell companies in the Cayman Islands, each one perfectly legal on the surface. But the timing was too precise, the amounts too carefully structured to avoid international reporting requirements. Money was flowing out of Min Jae's legitimate businesses and into accounts that existed only on paper, then disappearing into the financial equivalent of fog. This was it, the evidence Interpol needed. Nina sat back in her chair, staring at the screen, her heart pounding. All she had to do was copy these files to her encrypted flash drive, send them to her handler, and this assignment would be over. Min Jae would be arrested. His empire would crumble. Justice would be served. Her hand trembled as she reached for the flash drive in her bag. Froze. Because over the past 9 days, Min Jae had shared things with her. Small things. The way he took his coffee. Black. No sugar. Like he was punishing himself. The fact that he hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in 7 years. That his brother's name had been Min Jun, and they'd been less than 2 years apart. That sometimes he still reached for his phone to call him before remembering he was dead. He'd let her see him, the real him, beneath the armor, and she was about to destroy him. Nina closed the file, feeling sick. Problem? His voice came from directly behind her, soft and dangerous. She nearly jumped out of her skin. She hadn't heard him approach, hadn't heard the glass door open. How long had he been standing there? No, she said quickly, too quickly. Just tired. He moved closer. She could feel the heat of him behind her chair, could smell that cedar and frost cologne. You're lying. I'm not. Yes, you are. Your shoulders tensed, your breathing changed. You closed that file the second you heard my voice. He was right behind her now, close enough that she could feel his breath on her neck. What did you find, Nina? First time he'd used her first name. It sounded like a caress, and an interrogation rolled into one. Nothing. Just some irregularities I need to investigate further. Show me. It wasn't a request. Nina's mind raced. If she showed him the evidence, her cover was blown. He'd know she was getting close to something he wanted hidden. But if she refused, he'd know she was hiding something. Either way, she was caught. She opened the file. Min Jae leaned down, one hand bracing on her desk, the other on the back of her chair, caging her in without touching her. His eyes scanned the screen, taking in the shell companies, the transaction patterns, the carefully structured amounts. For 30 seconds, he said nothing. Just read. Then, those aren't mine. Nina's head whipped around. She was suddenly face to face with him, so close she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. What? Those accounts. They're not mine. I've never seen them before. He straightened, but didn't step back. Someone's using my business infrastructure to launder money, routing it through my companies to make it look like I'm the source. That's not possible. The access codes, the timing, everything points to me, I know. His jaw clenched. That's the point. Someone's framing me. Nina stared at him. Why didn't you tell me this before? Why let me audit your finances if you knew there was evidence of money laundering? Because I didn't know the specifics. I knew someone had infiltrated my systems, but I couldn't find where, and I couldn't hire outside investigators without tipping off whoever's behind it. He looked at her, something vulnerable flashing across his face. So I waited for the international auditor, someone with no connection to Seoul's underground, someone who might actually find what I couldn't. You used me. I gave you a job. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, you manipulated this entire situation. You let me think I was investigating you when really I was doing your work for you. Yes. No apology. No guilt. Just flat honesty. And now that you've found the evidence, we can figure out who's behind it. We. You didn't think I'd let you walk away now, did you? Not when you're the first person in 7 years who can actually touch me without sending me into a panic attack. Not when you look at me like I'm worth saving. He finally stepped back, giving her space. You're in this now, Nina, whether you want to be or not. She stood, facing him. That sounds like a threat. It's a statement of fact. Whoever's framing me will eventually realize you found their trail, and when they do, you'll be a liability they need to eliminate. So what? You're protecting me now? Yes. The simple honesty of it knocked the wind out of her. Why? She whispered. Because you matter. He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Because when you walked into my life 9 days ago, something shifted. The silence in my head got quieter. The nightmares got less frequent. For the first time in 7 years, I felt like maybe I could be human again, and I don't know what that means, but I know I'm not ready to lose it. Nina's throat tightened. This was a disaster. She was supposed to be investigating him, not developing feelings for him, was supposed to be gathering evidence, not uncovering his humanity, was supposed to betray him, not want to protect him. Min Jae. Her phone buzzed, loud in the silent office. She grabbed it, saw her handler's number, encrypted call. They never called unless it was urgent. I need to take this, she said. He nodded, walked back to his office, the glass door sliding shut. Nina answered. Yes? We have a problem. Her handler's voice was tight. Our intelligence indicates someone in Seoul knows about you, knows you're investigating Min Jae. We're pulling you out. You have 24 hours to get to the extraction point. Her stomach dropped. Wait, who knows? How did they? We don't know yet, but we have reliable intel that there's a leak somewhere. Your cover may be blown. Get out now while you still can. But I just found evidence, real evidence. If you give me a few more days, negative. Your life is more important than the case. Extract within 24 hours. That's an order. The line went dead. Nina stood there, phone in hand, her world tilting on its axis. Someone new. Someone in Seoul's underworld knew an Interpol agent was investigating Min Jae, which meant someone was about to make a move against her, against him, against both of them, and she had less than a day to decide. Follow orders and disappear, leaving Min Jae to whatever fate awaited him, or stay and risk everything, including her own life, for a man she barely knew. A man who, despite everything, looked at her like she was the first light after 7 years of darkness. She looked through the frosted glass at his silhouette. He'd returned to his desk, shoulders hunched, head in his hands. Even from here, she could see the exhaustion radiating off him. Nina made a decision. She wasn't leaving. Not yet. Not until she found out who was trying to destroy them both. Subscribe if you need to know what happens next, because this story is about to go somewhere dark and dangerous, and you won't want to miss a single moment. At midnight, Nina was still at her desk, going through files with increasingly frantic intensity. If someone in Seoul knew about her investigation, it had to be someone with access to either Interpol's communications or Min Jae's inner circle. Someone who could monitor both sides of this equation. The list of suspects was short and terrifying. She pulled up employee records, cross-referencing names against known associates of Seoul's crime families, checked financial transactions for unusual payments that might indicate bribes or blackmail, traced communication patterns looking for suspicious contacts with offshore accounts. The glass door opened. It's midnight, Min Jae said. Go home. I can't. Nina. I said I can't. She looked at him, and he must have seen something in her expression, because he went very still. Someone knows. About me. About my real reason for being here. He was across the room in 3 strides. Explain. She shouldn't tell him. Telling him meant admitting she was undercover, that her entire identity was a lie, that she'd been sent to bring him down. It meant destroying whatever trust they'd built. But if someone was about to make a move against both of them, he needed to know. "I'm not really a financial auditor," she said. "I'm an investigator. Interpol sent me to gather evidence of your money laundering operations. I was supposed to get close, find proof, and report back. The audit was just cover." She watched his face, waiting for fury, for betrayal, for violence. Instead, he laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "Of course you are. Of course the first person who can touch me without sending me into a tailspin is a spy sent to destroy me. The universe has a sick sense of humour. Min-jae, no, it's fine. It's actually perfect, because now I know why you looked at me like I was human. You were playing a role, gaining my trust, and I fell for it like an idiot." He turned away, hand clenching into a fist. "I actually thought, it doesn't matter what I thought. It wasn't all an act." The words spilled out before she could stop them. "The first few days, yes, I was just doing my job. But Min-jae, when you told me about your brother, when you shared that pain, I wasn't pretending to care. I do care. More than I should. More than is safe or smart or professional." He looked back at her, something dangerous in his eyes. "Prove it." "What?" "Prove you care. Prove this isn't just deep cover. Prove I'm not just another target to you." "How?" "Help me find who's framing me. Help me stop whoever's about to come after us. Stay, instead of running back to Interpol with whatever evidence you've gathered." It was a test, the biggest test he'd given her, and Nina realised he already knew what she'd choose, could see it in the way he was looking at her, with hope and fear and desperate need all tangled together. "I got a call tonight," she said, "from my handler. They're pulling me out. They know someone in Seoul has identified me as an agent. I have 24 hours to extract. Then you should go. Get somewhere safe." "I should, but I'm not going to." She stood, walking around her desk to face him. "Because you're right. You're in this because someone's using your operations as cover, and I'm in this because I found their trail. We're already targets. Running won't change that. So what do you suggest? We find who's behind this, together, before they make their move." He studied her face, searching for deception. "Why? Why risk your life for me? You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you're not the monster everyone thinks you are. I know you've been carrying your brother's death for 7 years, punishing yourself by cutting off all human connection. I know that when you look at me, you see possibility, hope, a future that isn't just survival." She took a breath. "And I know that somewhere between day one and now, I stopped seeing you as a target and started seeing you as someone I don't want to lose." Silence, heavy and charged. Then Min-jae moved, closed the distance between them in one step, his hands coming up to frame her face. Not quite touching, his palms hovered millimeters from her cheeks, close enough to feel the warmth, but not making contact. "If I kiss you," he said, voice rough, "everything changes. We cross a line we can't uncross. You stop being an investigator. I stop being your target. We become something else, something complicated and dangerous and probably doomed." Nina's heart hammered against her ribs. "I know. I haven't kissed anyone in 7 years. Haven't wanted to. The thought of that kind of intimacy made my skin crawl. But with you," his hands trembled, "with you, I want to. God help me. I want to so badly it hurts. Then do it." She reached up slowly, giving him time to pull away, and wrapped her fingers around his wrists, guiding his hands the final distance until his palms pressed against her cheeks. "Touch me, kiss me, stop punishing yourself for surviving when your brother didn't." His breath hitched. His eyes closed. For a moment, she thought he might pull away. Then his lips crashed into hers. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tentative. It was 7 years of starvation and loneliness and need poured into one kiss. His hand slid from her face to her hair, fingers tangling in her braids, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, drowning in the taste of him. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, his forehead pressed against hers. "This is insane," he whispered. "Completely. We're going to get each other killed. Probably. I don't care. I can't care. Not anymore." He kissed her again, softer this time. "Stay with me tonight, at my place. If someone's coming after us, I want you where I can protect you." It was reckless, unprofessional, against every protocol she'd ever been taught. "Okay," Nina said. Because somewhere between that first accidental touch and this moment, she'd stopped following rules and started following her heart, even if it led her straight into danger. Hit that like button if your heart is racing right now, because the next part is going to leave you breathless. Min-jae's apartment was nothing like she expected. She'd imagined something cold and minimalist, like his office, all glass and steel and empty spaces. Instead, it was warm, human. Books lined the walls, philosophy, history, fiction in Korean and English. Comfortable furniture that looked actually satin, photographs on the shelves, though she noticed all of them stopped 7 years ago, before his brother's death. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, shrugging out of his jacket. "Are you hungry? I can order something." "Min-jae." She caught his hand. "Stop." He froze, staring at their joined hands like it was a miracle. "You're nervous," she said gently. "I've seen you face down rival crime lords without blinking, but having me in your home makes you nervous. You're the first person I've brought here in 7 years. The first person I've allowed into my private space. The first person I've—" He stopped. "Everything with you is a first." Nina tugged him toward the couch. They sat, and she kept his hand in hers, marveling at how such a simple gesture, holding hands, could feel so monumental. "Tell me about Min-jun," she said. He stiffened. "Why?" "Because you've been carrying him alone for too long. Because grief shared is grief halved. Because I want to know about the person who mattered so much that losing him broke you." For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "He was better than me. Kinder. Softer. He didn't want anything to do with the family business. He wanted to be a teacher. Wanted to work with kids in underprivileged neighborhoods, give them opportunities he'd had." Min-jae's voice was distant. "But our father needed both sons in the business, legacy and all that. Min-jun went along with it because he loved our father, but he hated every minute." "What happened?" "The night he died. Territorial dispute. Another organization wanted our shipping routes. They sent men to a meeting that was supposed to be peaceful. It wasn't. Guns came out. Min-jun stepped in front of me when someone fired, took the bullet that was meant for me. His free hand clenched into a fist. He died because I didn't move fast enough. Because I didn't see the threat. Because I failed him. It wasn't your fault. Everyone says that. But I was the older brother. I was supposed to protect him, and I failed. So I built walls, shut everyone out, convinced myself that if I didn't let anyone close, I couldn't fail them too." Nina shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "Walls don't protect you from pain, Min-jae. They just make you lonely." His arm came around her shoulders, tentative at first, then tightening, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he didn't hold on. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's warmth, not speaking. Finally, Min-jae said, "We should sleep. Tomorrow we start hunting whoever's after us, and that means we need to be sharp." He showed her to the guest bedroom, tastefully decorated, clearly unused. "I'll be right next door if you need anything." But as he turned to leave, Nina caught his hand. "Stay." His eyes widened. "Nina, not for that. Just stay. I don't want to be alone tonight, and I don't think you do either." He hesitated, then nodded. They lay on top of the covers, fully clothed, facing each other in the darkness, not touching except for their joined hands between them. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me, for not running, for making me feel human again." Nina squeezed his hand. "Thank you for letting me in." She fell asleep watching him, memorizing the lines of his face, wondering if tomorrow would be the day everything fell apart, wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, or the best decision. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, disorientation. Then memory flooded back, Min-jae's confession, the kiss, falling asleep holding his hand. She sat up, noticed he was gone, and followed the coffee smell to the kitchen. Min-jae stood at the stove, making breakfast. He was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. She'd never seen him in casual clothes. He looked younger, almost normal. "Morning," he said without turning around. "I made eggs. And there's coffee. I wasn't sure how you take it, so I made it black and left the cream and sugar out." Nina poured herself a cup, added cream. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to." He plated the eggs, set them on the counter. "We need to talk about our plan." She sat on a bar stool. "I agree. I spent half the night thinking about this. Whoever's framing me has to be someone with access to my financial systems, someone who understands my operations well enough to route money through them convincingly. That's a short list of people. Your CFO, possibly. His assistant, Jung Mi-sun, has been acting strange lately, watching you very carefully, maybe too carefully." Nina remembered the woman's hostility in the bathroom. "You think she's involved?" "I think she's jealous of you, of the attention I've been giving you. But jealousy can be exploited by the right person." He pulled out his phone, showed her a photograph. "This man is Park Jae-sung, my biggest rival. We've been at war over territory for 5 years. If anyone would benefit from framing me, it's him." The man in the photo was handsome in a cold, polished way, all sharp suits and sharper smiles. "How do we prove he's behind it?" "We don't. Not yet. First, we need to find out how deep the infiltration goes, who on my team is compromised, and we need to do it before whoever's watching realizes you found the money trail." "They might already know. My handler said there was a leak." Min-jae nodded. "Which means we're running out of time. I have a plan, but it's risky. And it involves you trusting me completely." "I'm listening." "Tonight, there's a meeting between my organization and Jae-sung's, neutral ground. It's supposed to be about negotiating a ceasefire in certain territories. But it's really both sides sizing each other up, looking for weaknesses." He leaned forward. "I want you there, as my guest, my companion." Nina's eyebrows rose. "You want to present me as your girlfriend? In front of your rival and all your men?" "Yes, because if Jae-sung is behind the frame job, he'll react. He'll know you're the auditor who found his trail, and his reaction will tell us everything." "That's incredibly dangerous." "I know, but we need to force his hand, make him move before he's ready, and the best way to do that is to show him that you're not just my auditor. You're important to me, that I care about you enough to bring you into my world publicly." Nina's heart raced. "And do you care about me enough?" He reached across the counter, took her hand. "I think you already know the answer to that." She did. She could see it in his eyes, feel it in the way he touched her like she was precious. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it. Let's walk into the lion's den and see who tries to eat us." He smiled. A real smile, rare and beautiful. You're either very brave or very crazy. Can't I be both? With you? Probably. Comment what you think will happen at this meeting, because the betrayal that's coming will shock you to your core. The meeting was held in a private room at one of Seoul's most expensive restaurants. Neutral ground, Min Jae had explained. A place where violence would attract too much attention, where both sides had to play at being civilized. Nina dressed carefully, a form-fitting black dress that was elegant but not provocative, her braids styled up to show her neck, minimal jewelry. She looked like exactly what Min Jae wanted her to look like, a powerful woman who belonged at his side. When she emerged from the guest room, Min Jae's expression shifted to something heated and possessive. You look stunning. That was the goal. He crossed to her, adjusted her necklace with gentle fingers. Remember, stay close to me, don't accept drinks from anyone else, and if I signal you to leave, you go immediately. No arguments. Min Jae, I can handle myself. I know, but let me protect you anyway, please. The vulnerability in his voice made her nod. Okay. The restaurant was all low lighting and expensive decor, the kind of place where a single meal cost more than most people's rent. They were escorted to a private room in the back, where two groups of men in expensive suits eyed each other with barely concealed hostility. And there, at the head of one table, sat Park Jae-sung. He was even more handsome in person, the kind of beauty that felt dangerous, calculated. When he saw Nina, his eyebrows rose. Min Jae, he said smoothly in Korean, standing to greet them. You brought a date. How unexpected. Jae-sung! Min Jae's voice was cold. Let me introduce Miss Nina Sampson. She's handling the European expansion audit. Ah, the Nigerian auditor everyone's been talking about. Jae-sung extended his hand to Nina. A pleasure. She shook it, noting how he held on just a second too long, how his eyes assessed her like she was a puzzle to solve. The pleasure is mine, Mr. Park, she said in Korean. They sat. The meeting began. Tense negotiations over territory, shipping routes, areas of influence. Nina listened carefully, learning the dynamics of Seoul's underworld through the coded language of business deals. And she watched Jae-sung, the way his eyes kept drifting to her, the way he smiled when Min Jae's hand settled possessively on her back, like he was enjoying some private joke. Halfway through the meeting, Jae-sung leaned back in his chair. So, Miss Sampson, what do you think of Seoul? Very different from Lagos, I imagine. Every city has its secrets, she said carefully. Some are just better at hiding them. Indeed. And some secrets, when uncovered, can be quite explosive. His smile widened, especially financial secrets. Wouldn't you agree? The room went very quiet. Min Jae's hand tightened on her back. A warning. I wouldn't know, Nina said. I'm just an auditor. I look at numbers, not secrets. But numbers tell stories, don't they? Stories about where money comes from, where it goes, who's really in control. Jae-sung poured himself more wine. For instance, I've heard rumours that certain accounts in the Cayman Islands have been quite active lately, funneling money through legitimate businesses to hide its source. Fascinating, really. Min Jae went very still beside her. I wouldn't know anything about that, Nina said, her voice steady even as her pulse raced. No, how odd. Because I heard that a very talented investigator recently discovered those accounts, traced them back to their source, found evidence of money laundering sophisticated enough to fool most authorities. His eyes locked on hers. Tell me, Miss Sampson, when you found that evidence, did you report it, or did you perhaps decide to keep it to yourself? The accusation hung in the air like a blade. Min-jae started to stand, but Nina put a hand on his arm, stopping him. "Mr. Park," she said calmly, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I do know that making baseless accusations in a room full of witnesses seems unwise. Unless, of course, you have something to hide." Jae-sung's smile faltered, just for a second, but she saw it. "Nothing to hide," he said. "Just making conversation. Then, let's talk about something else, like why you've been routing illegal funds through Mr. Kang's businesses, why you've been framing him for crimes you committed, and why you seem so interested in whether I've found evidence of it." The room exploded into chaos. Jae-sung's men reached for weapons. Min-jae's men did the same. Everyone was shouting in Korean, the restaurant's staff fleeing in terror, and Jae-sung's mask dropped completely, revealing the cold predator beneath. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for," he said to Nina, "but not smart enough. Did you really think I'd let you expose me, that I'd let you ruin years of careful planning?" He pulled out a gun, aimed it at her. Min-jae moved faster than she'd ever seen him move, threw himself between her and the gun just as it fired. The sound was deafening. Min-jae grunted, stumbled, red bloomed across his shoulder. Blood. So much blood. "No." Nina caught him as he fell, her hands pressed against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding, just like he'd done for his brother 7 years ago. "No, no, no, Min-jae, stay with me." His men returned fire. Jae-sung's men fired back. The private room became a war zone. And through it all, Nina held Min-jae, his blood hot and sticky on her hands, her heart shattering as she watched his eyes lose focus. "Don't you dare," she whispered fiercely. "Don't you dare die on me. We just found each other. You don't get to leave me now." His hand came up, trembling, to touch her face. "You were worth dying for. You're not dying. You're not. I won't let you." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Hyun-soo appeared beside her, his own gun drawn. "We need to move him. Now. Before the police arrive." "He's been shot." "I know, but if he's taken into custody, Jae-sung's people inside the department will finish the job. Trust me, Miss Sampson. We need to go." She looked at Min-jae's pale face, at the blood still flowing, made a decision. "Get us out of here. Subscribe right now if you can't handle the suspense, because what happens next will either save them or destroy them both." They took Min-jae to a private clinic, the kind that didn't ask questions and didn't report gunshot wounds. A doctor Hyun-soo trusted worked on him for 3 hours while Nina paced the waiting room, his blood still on her hands, her dress, her skin. She kept seeing it. The moment the gun fired, the moment Min-jae threw himself in front of her without hesitation, the moment she realized he was willing to die for her, just like she'd been willing to die for him. When the doctor finally emerged, exhausted, Nina rushed forward. "Is he?" "He'll live. The bullet missed anything vital. He'll need rest and antibiotics, but he should make a full recovery." The doctor paused. "He's asking for you." She found Min-jae in a private room, shirtless, his shoulder bandaged, his face pale but alert. When he saw her, relief flooded his expression. "You're okay," he breathed. "I'm okay. You got shot." She sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle him. "You threw yourself in front of a bullet for me. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking that losing you wasn't an option, that I'd rather die than watch you get hurt." His good hand found hers, and I was thinking that my brother died because I wasn't fast enough to save him. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You could have died, but I didn't, and neither did you. That's what matters." She kissed him, soft and desperate, tasting salt and fear and relief. When they broke apart, he said, Jae-sung got away. Hyun-soo says he fled before the police arrived, but we have bigger problems. What problems? Jung Mi-sun. She's disappeared, and she took copies of all my financial records with her, including the evidence you found. Nina's stomach dropped. She was working for Jae-sung. Looks like it. She's been feeding him information for months about my operations, my weaknesses. And when you showed up, she started reporting on you too. That's how Jae-sung knew you'd found the money trail. So Jae-sung has evidence that proves he framed you, but he also has me on record investigating you, which means he can destroy both of us, show the evidence to the authorities and frame us both as co-conspirators, or use it as blackmail to force me out of Seoul. Min-jae's jaw clenched. He's probably doing it right now, making copies, preparing to release it. Then we need to stop him. We need to find Mi-sun, get those files back, and expose what Jae-sung's really doing. Nina, you could just leave. Take what you know to Interpol. Let them handle it. Get yourself to safety. She stared at him. You really think I'd abandon you now? After everything? I think you'd be smart too. I'm a liability, a crime lord with a target on his back. You could have a career, a life, a future. If you stay with me, all of that goes away. I don't care about my career. I don't care about playing it safe. I care about you. She squeezed his hand. We're in this together. Until the end, whatever that looks like. He pulled her down for another kiss, this one deeper, more desperate. Like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. When they broke apart, he said, Then we find Mi-sun, and we end this, tonight. You just got shot. You need to rest. I've been shot before. I'll be fine. He started to sit up, winced. Okay, I'll be mostly fine. But we don't have time to wait. Jae-sung won't waste the opportunity. We move now, or we lose everything. Nina knew he was right. Knew that waiting meant giving Jae-sung time to destroy them. Fine. But you're not going alone. I'm coming with you. Nina, non-negotiable. We're partners now, equals. Which means you don't get to protect me by leaving me behind. He stared at her, then smiled. That rare, genuine smile. You're terrifying. You know that? Good. Now tell me the plan. Finding Mi-sun turned out to be easier than expected. She hadn't run far, just to a hotel in Gangnam where she was meeting with someone to hand over the stolen files. Hyun-soo's contacts in the hospitality industry tracked her down within 2 hours. She's on the 43rd floor, Hyun-soo said, showing them security footage on his phone. Room 43-112, and she's not alone. There are at least 3 of Jae-sung's men with her. 3 against 3 then, Min-jae said. He, Nina and Hyun-soo were parked outside the hotel in a nondescript car. We go in quiet, get the files, get out. No shooting unless absolutely necessary. And what's my role? Nina asked. You stay in the car and... Wrong answer. Try again. Min-jae sighed. You come with us, but you stay behind me. And if shooting starts, you duck. Better. But I'm not defenseless. I've been through tactical training at Interpol. I can handle myself in a fight. I know you can. But humour me anyway. They entered the hotel through a service entrance, took the stairs to avoid security cameras in the elevators. By the time they reached the 43rd floor, Min-jae was breathing hard, his shoulder wound clearly causing pain. You okay? Nina whispered. Fine. Let's do this. They approached room 43-12. Hyun-soo had a key card, courtesy of those same hospitality contacts. He swiped it, and the door clicked open. The room beyond was a suite, large living area, bedroom visible through an open door. Mi-sun sat at a desk, laptop open, clearly uploading files. 2 of Jae-sung's men stood by the windows. The 3rd was in the bedroom. Jung Mi-sun, Min-jae said, stepping into the room. We need to talk. Mi-sun's head snapped up. Her eyes widened. "You're supposed to be dead. Jae-sung said—" Jae-sung lied. He does that. Min-jae moved further into the room, Nina and Hyun-soo flanking him. "Give me the files." "I don't think so." Mi-sun stood, backing towards the bedroom. "Those files are my insurance, my ticket out of Seoul. You're not getting them." One of Jae-sung's men drew a gun. Everything happened very fast. Hyun-soo fired first, hitting the man in the leg. He went down screaming. The second man raised his weapon, but Nina was already moving, years of self-defense training kicking in. She swept his legs, grabbed his gun as he fell, and had it pointed at him before he could recover. The third man emerged from the bedroom, gun raised. Min-jae shot him, clean shot to the shoulder. The man dropped. In less than 10 seconds, all 3 of Jae-sung's men were neutralized. Mi-sun stared in shock. "You brought her, an Interpol agent, to a black ops mission? Are you insane? Turns out she's full of surprises," Min-jae said, moving towards the laptop. "Now give me the files, or I'll take them." "You can't. If those files go public, you'll be destroyed. The Korean authorities will have no choice but to arrest you, prosecute you. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison." "Then I guess I'll have to make sure they don't go public." He reached for the laptop. Mi-sun pulled out a small device, a trigger. "I've already uploaded copies to a cloud server, scheduled to release in 6 hours unless I cancel it. If you try to stop me, the files go public anyway. If you hurt me, they go public. If you—" Nina stepped forward, gun still trained on the man at her feet. "What do you want?" Mi-sun blinked. "What?" "You created a dead man's switch, which means you want something in exchange for cancelling the release. What is it?" "I want out. Out of Seoul. Out of Korea. I want a new identity and enough money to disappear." "Done," Min-jae said immediately. Mi-sun stared. "Just like that. Just like that. I'll arrange transport, new documents, money. All of it. In exchange, you cancel the release and give us the original files." "How do I know you'll keep your word?" "Because unlike Jae-sung, I don't lie to people who work for me, even people who betray me." His voice hardened. "But, Mi-sun, if you ever come back to Seoul, if you ever work against me again, there won't be negotiation. There will just be an ending. Understood?" She nodded quickly. "Understood." "Then cancel the release. Now." She did, fingers flying over the keyboard, typing in codes, watching as the upload cancelled and the files were deleted from the cloud server. "It's done," she said quietly. "The files are gone. Good. Hyun-soo will arrange your extraction. You leave tonight." Min-jae took the laptop, the external drives, everything. "And me, son? I hope you find whatever you're looking for, whatever made betraying me seem worth it." She looked at him, something like regret crossing her face. "You were always kind to me, generous. I didn't betray you because I hated you. I did it because Jae-sung promised me something you never could."
"What's that?" "Freedom. From this world. From the violence and fear and constant danger. He promised I could walk away, start over, be normal." She laughed bitterly. "I guess I was stupid to believe him." "You weren't stupid. Just desperate. I understand desperate." He nodded to Hyun-soo. "Get her out of here." As Hyun-soo escorted Mi-sun and the wounded men out, Nina turned to Min-jae. "You let her go. You could have killed her, should have by underworld rules, but you let her go." She was right. She wanted freedom. I can't fault her for that. He looked at Nina. "Besides, I'm trying to be better. Trying to be the man you see when you look at me. That man doesn't execute people for being afraid." Nina kissed him, soft and proud. "I knew there was more to you than the ruthless crime lord. Don't spread that around. Bad for my reputation." She laughed, actually laughed,
And for a moment, standing in a hotel room with unconscious gangsters and stolen files, everything felt almost normal. Then Min Jae's phone rang. He answered, listened. His expression went cold and hard. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. We're on our way. He hung up, looked at Nina. Jae-sung just hit my headquarters. Full assault. He's trying to take everything while I'm weakened. Then we go back. We end this. Tonight. Nina, this is war. Real war. People are going to die. I know. But if we don't stop him now, he'll never stop coming after us. After you. She took his hand. So, we finish it. Together. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Together. Comment if you think they survive this, because the final confrontation is about to be absolutely brutal. Min Jae's headquarters was a war zone. Jae-sung had brought an army, maybe 40 men, all armed, all trained. They'd breached the building's security, fought their way up to the executive floors, and were currently engaged in a firefight with Min Jae's people. We can't go in the front, Hyun-soo said, surveying the scene from their car. Too many hostiles. We'll be cut down before we reach the elevators. Service entrance, Min Jae said. Same way we got Nina out on her first day. There's an express elevator that goes straight to my floor. Jae-sung won't expect us to come from above. You sure about this, boss? You're injured. You should... I'm sure. Let's move. They entered through the loading dock, took the service elevator up. The sounds of gunfire grew louder as they ascended. Nina's heart hammered, adrenaline flooding her system. This was it, the moment everything either came together or fell apart. The elevator doors opened on Min Jae's floor. Chaos greeted them. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, bullet holes in walls. Min Jae's people had barricaded themselves in offices, firing at Jae-sung's men from cover. And in the middle of it all, calm and smiling, stood Park Jae-sung. Min Jae! He called out cheerfully, like they were old friends meeting for drinks. I was hoping you'd show up. Though I have to say, I'm impressed you're still standing. That bullet should have done more damage. You missed, Min Jae said coldly, stepping into the open. Nina tried to pull him back, but he shook his head. This was something he needed to do. Did I? Or did I hit exactly who I meant to? After all, I've had 7 years to study you, 7 years to learn your weaknesses, and the biggest one just walked through that door with you. Jae-sung's eyes locked on Nina. Her? You actually care about her. That's your fatal flaw, Min Jae. You forgot the first rule, never let anyone matter. The moment you care, you're vulnerable. You're wrong. Caring isn't weakness. It's what separates us from monsters like you. Monsters? Jae-sung laughed. We're the same, you and I. We built empires on blood and fear. We've both killed to protect what's ours. The only difference is I don't pretend to be anything other than what I am. No. The difference is I kill to protect. You kill for profit. You frame innocent people. You traffic in human misery. You're everything I've been trying not to become. Then you're a fool. Because this world doesn't reward mercy. It rewards strength. And right now, I have 40 men to your 15. I have files that can destroy you if I want. And I have every reason to end you here and now. Then do it. Stop talking and pull the trigger. Jae-sung's smile widened. Oh, I will. But first, I want you to watch her die. Want you to feel what I felt when you took everything from me 5 years ago. I took nothing from you. You lost territory because you were careless, because you underestimated your enemies. You killed my brother. The words exploded out of Jae-sung, his composure cracking. He was 18 years old, barely in the business. And you killed him because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Min Jae went very still. I don't know what you're talking about. The warehouse fire, 5 years ago, your men set it to destroy evidence of a rival operation. My brother was inside. He burned to death because of you. That fire was an accident, a gas leak. I would never... Liar! Jae-sung's gun came up, pointed at Nina. You took my brother. Now I'll take the woman you love. And then I'll take everything else. Your empire, your reputation, your life. Time slowed. Nina saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw Min-jae start to move, too far away to reach her in time, saw Jae-sung's smile of triumph. She dove sideways as the gun fired. Pain exploded in her side, not a direct hit, but close enough. She hit the ground hard, gasping. Min-jae roared, a sound of pure rage and anguish. He crossed the distance to Jae-sung in seconds. His injured shoulder, forgotten, slammed into him, both of them crashing to the ground. They fought with brutal efficiency. Jae-sung was younger, faster, but Min-jae was desperate, fueled by 7 years of grief and guilt, and the terror of losing someone else he loved. He won, pinned Jae-sung to the ground, arm across his throat, pressing down. Tell me the truth. Did I really kill your brother, or was that another lie? Jae-sung struggled, gasping. Does it matter? He's dead. Your brother's dead. Now hers will be too. She's not dead. Min-jae pressed harder, and neither am I. You lost, Jae-sung. Accept it. Never. I'll hunt you forever. I'll never stop until... Police sirens wailed outside. Dozens of them. Hyun-soo appeared beside Min-jae. Boss, we need to go. Now. Interpol is here. Multiple agencies. Someone called in the whole cavalry. Min-jae looked at Nina, who was being helped to her feet by one of his men. The wound in her side was bleeding, but not life-threatening. I called them, she said quietly. While we were in the car, I gave them everything. Jae-sung's crimes, the evidence, Mi-sun's testimony. All of it. They're here to arrest him, not you. Min-jae stared at her. You saved me. Again. That's what partners do. He stood, letting Jae-sung go. The man scrambled backward as police flooded into the building, weapons drawn, shouting orders in Korean. One officer approached Min-jae. Kang Min-jae, you need to come with us. We have questions about your involvement in... He's not involved, Nina said, stepping forward despite her wound. I'm Agent Nina Sampson, Interpol Financial Crimes Division. I've been investigating Park Jae-sung for money laundering and human trafficking. Mr. Kang has been assisting in the investigation. He's cooperating fully. The officer looked skeptical. That's not how. Check with your superiors. My credentials are on file. This is an international investigation. Mr. Kang is a witness, not a suspect. It was a lie, but it was a lie that gave them time. Time to get their stories straight. Time to figure out how to navigate the aftermath. The officer spoke into his radio, listened. His expression changed. Surprise, then grudging acceptance. Agent Sampson, we'll need your full report. And Mr. Kang, you'll need to make a formal statement. Of course, Nina said, after we receive medical attention. She swayed, and Min-jae caught her, cradling her against his chest. She needs a hospital, now. I'll be fine, she protested weakly. You've been shot. You're going to the hospital. He looked at the officer. We'll cooperate fully. But first, I'm taking care of her. That's not negotiable. The officer nodded. Paramedics are on their way up. As they waited, Min-jae held Nina, his face buried in her hair. You saved my life, risked everything to protect me. Why? Because I love you, she said simply. And when you love someone, you fight for them, no matter the cost. I love you too. He kissed her forehead. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I was worth saving. You already have. Hit that subscribe button if you're crying right now, because the ending is going to make all of this worth it. 3 months later. Nina stood in her new office, looking out at Seoul's skyline. Her office, not Min-jae's, not Interpol's, her own private consulting firm, specializing in financial crimes investigation for both corporate clients and law enforcement. The door opened. Min-jae walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee and that small smile he only showed her. "Thought you might need this," he said, setting 1 cup on her desk. "You spoil me." "I try." He kissed her, soft and sweet. "How's the investigation going?" "Good. The evidence against Jae-sung is solid. The prosecutors think they have enough for 20 different charges. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." "Good. He can't hurt anyone else from there." Nina leaned into him, letting him wrap his arms around her. In the months since that terrible night, so much had changed. Min-jae had restructured his entire organization, cutting ties with anything illegal, going completely legitimate. It hadn't been easy. Some of his people had quit, others had pushed back. But he'd done it anyway. For her, for himself, for the future they wanted to build together. "My parents called," she said. "They want to meet you." "When?" "Next month. We're flying to Lagos." Min-jae tensed slightly. "Your family knows what I was, what I did. They know who you are now. That's what matters." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "My father says any man who makes his daughter this happy can't be all bad. My mother says she wants to feed you until you can't move. My brothers say they're going to interrogate you thoroughly." "Sounds terrifying." "It will be. But you'll survive. You've survived worse." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "True." They stood together, wrapped in each other's warmth, looking out at the city that had brought them together. Seoul glittered below them, full of possibility and promise. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too." Because that was the thing about love, Nina thought. It made the impossible possible, made the cold warm, made the untouchable touchable, made the broken whole. She'd come to Seoul to take down a criminal. Instead, she'd saved a man, and in the process, she'd saved herself. 6 months after that, the wedding was small, just family and close friends. Nina wore traditional Nigerian attire, her braids decorated with gold thread. Min-jae wore a hanbok, looking nervous and happy, and so in love it hurt to see. They exchanged vows in Korean and English, promises to protect and cherish and challenge each other, to build a life together that honoured both their cultures, both their histories, both their futures. When they kissed, their families cheered, Korean and Nigerian voices blending into one joyful sound. At the reception, Min-jae's mother pulled Nina aside. She was an elegant woman who'd been cold to her son for years, unable to forgive him for surviving when Min-jun died. But seeing him happy, seeing him healed, had softened something in her. "Thank you," she said in halting English. "You gave me my son back, the real one, not the ghost he became." Nina's eyes filled with tears. He saved himself. I just reminded him he was worth saving. That's what love does. It reminds us we're worth fighting for. Later, as they danced, Min-jae held her close, his touch easy and natural now. No more fear, no more walls, just warmth and acceptance and joy. "What are you thinking?" Nina asked. "That's 7 years ago. I thought my life was over, that I'd never feel human again, never touch anyone, never love anyone." He kissed her forehead, "And then you crashed into me in that hallway and everything changed. Best collision of my life." "Mine too." As the night wore on, as families mingled and celebrated, Nina looked around at all the people who'd come to witness their union, at the life they'd built from ashes and pain and impossible circumstances, at the love that had saved them both. And she knew this was just the beginning. Their story would continue. There would be challenges, cultural differences to navigate, families to blend, maybe children someday, if they were lucky. But they'd face it all together. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light. One touch at a time, one kiss at a time, one moment of impossible, beautiful, hard-won love at a time. If this story made you believe in love again, make sure you've liked, commented, and subscribed, because stories like this are what we live for, and your support means everything. Drop a heart in the comments if you're crying happy tears right now. The end.